What if the golden cage you lived in was more dangerous than the monsters outside? What if the one you trusted the most was the one chaining you with invisible strings? And what if the glittering kingdom you called home was built on shadows and secrets? Welcome to Gild by Raven Kennedy, a dark and seductive reimagining of the king. Midas myth where power is blinding, love is lethal, and freedom comes with a price. This isn't a fairy tale, this is survival inside a prison made of gold. In the Sixth Kingdom, beauty is power, and gold is everything. But for Auren, gold is also her prison. She isn't just a prized possession in the royal court, she is the possession. King Midas turned her into living gold, a gift only he could give, and one he refuses to let go. Auren has been gilded, body and soul, by the power of the man who saved her from poverty and pain. 10 years ago, Midas took her in, clothed her in silk, locked her in a gilded cage, and put her on display like a jewel. Now she's his favored pet, pampered yet isolated, admired by all and yet utterly alone. The world sees her as untouchable, golden, divine. But behind the gleam is a girl who has lost herself. She lives in a lavish cage, literally and metaphorically. Her entire apartment is lined with bars. She's guarded day and night by a team of women called saddles, who both serve and monitor her. She's been conditioned to believe her gilded life is privilege, not punishment, and she clings to Midas as her savior, even when that devotion slowly poisons her. But cracks begin to appear. Auren starts to question her loyalty, her feelings, her identity. The palace around her is full of political schemes and dark truths. Midas has ambitions far greater than keeping a gilded pet. As he plans to conquer the Fifth Kingdom and solidify his power, Auren becomes a pawn in a much bigger game, one that could break her or set her free. Outside the palace walls, war brews and alliances shift. The other rulers in the realm don't see Midas as invincible. His hunger for expansion is dangerous, and his enemies are watching. When Midas decides to send Auren on a diplomatic journey to the Fifth Kingdom with a military escort, she finds herself suddenly exposed to the real world, one she's been shielded from for years. This journey is where everything changes. Auren leaves the comfort and control of her gilded cage and steps into a world that is brutal, chaotic, and terrifying, but also raw and real. She meets Commander Rip, a fierce warrior with strange powers and no tolerance for weakness. Unlike the men at Midas's court, Rip doesn't fawn over her golden beauty. He sees past the glitter to the girl beneath, and that unnerves her more than she wants to admit. Rip is dangerous, not just because of his brute strength or commanding presence, but because he represents something foreign to Auren. Freedom, real freedom, the kind she's never tasted. When the escort is ambushed and Auren is captured, she's thrust into the clutches of the very kingdom Midas wants to dominate. Now a prisoner of war, her status as Midas's favored means nothing. She's just another tool to be used in a deadly game between monarchs. But captivity becomes clarity. In the absence of Midas, she begins to untangle the lies she's believed for so long. She starts to remember the girl she was before the gold, before the cage, before the blind devotion. Rip, though her captor, becomes a mirror. He challenges her, tests her, calls out the truth. He's not kind, but he's honest. And in his brutal honesty, Auren starts to rediscover her power. A power that has nothing to do with gilded skin or a king's affection. A power that lives deep within her. As she navigates the treacherous court of her enemies, Auren learns how to survive without Midas. How to think for herself. How to feel something other than fear disguised as loyalty. She begins to see the rot beneath the shine of the golden palace she once called home. And then comes the ultimate betrayal. Auren learns the true extent of Midas's manipulation. The gilding, the cage, the isolation. It wasn't protection. It was control. He didn't love her. He owned her. And the very thing she thought made her special, her golden body, was never a gift. It was a curse to bind her to him. With this revelation, Auren reaches a breaking point. She realizes she can no longer be the girl in the cage. She can't keep pretending her prison is a palace. She won't go back to being a pet. Not for Midas. Not for anyone. In the final chapters, Auren begins to embrace the truth of her power. She may have been turned to gold, but she's no one's trophy. She's a weapon, one that's just starting to awaken. And as the book ends on a chilling cliffhanger, one thing is clear. The cage has cracked, and the girl inside is no longer docile. She's dangerous, she's determined, and she's done being gilded. Closing. Thoughts. Gild is not your typical fantasy romance. It's raw, dark, and deeply psychological. A story about control, captivity, and the slow burn of self-discovery. Raven Kennedy takes the myth of King Midas and flips it into something brutal and beautiful. She peels back the glittering layers of toxic love and shows us what happens when a woman decides to stop surviving and start reclaiming her story. This isn't a tale of princes and happily ever afters. This is about a girl who was broken, used, and caged, and how she rises, not as a princess, but as a storm. If you think you know how this story ends, think again, because in Gild, the real power isn't in the gold. It's in the girl who refuses to be owned by it. If you want to listen, full audiobook for free. Link in description. Thank you.